of the marginal income tax rate. So this is to talk to Shannon's questions about tax rates going up. The income tax as we know it, I believe, is unconstitutional, immoral, and unethical and Marxist to take someone's produce. Go back to use taxes. Taxes for the roads, the bridges, the schools, the services that were provided. But an income tax is just growing the administrative state. But the marginal income tax, as we know it, was created in 1913. And like every tax, that's why they had that guy, Herman Cain, God rest his soul, may he rest in peace, had the 999 plan. I thought that was the dumbest thing in the world because although it was catchy, I still remember it, the 999 plan. Why would you allow the government to have two new taxes? Because it might start out 999, but then in the future it'll be 10, 10, 10, then 11, 11, 11, then 12, 12, 12, and 20, 20, 20. So I'm for abolishing the income tax and going back to a system of maybe use taxes. That's the way we know the cost of things. We're not paying for someone on the Jersey Turnpike to make 80 grand a year from a pension because they're a political appointee, or 100 grand a year at the county clerk's office because they're helping you with paper and giving you, a miserable experience when you have to get a new garbage can. Talk about the garbage can experience. It's been miserable. We've worked with our local municipality. We're paying them $100 for a garbage can. It's probably subsidized by taxpayer expense. And we're getting miserable experience. Like, why do we need that worker to give us an attitude when we're literally paying for a new garbage can? So I think people who are decrying the current system, we need to go on offense. We need to be voting down every school budget. We need to be voting down every environmental, I don't know where the state you live in, but I live in Jersey, and we always have these dumb taxes. We'll give 4 cents to preserve parkland in Ocean County, and it's so nice. We'll provide a bike path. You know what? If there's the public will for a bike path, let somebody create it. Don't use my tax dollars to do it and make me feel good. And they never tell you, okay, we're raising taxes by 20 billion. We're saying, oh, it's only going to be 4 cents a resident. So you think, oh yeah, I'll vote yes. Oh yeah, I'll vote yes. Vote no on all ballot initiatives. You'll generally be about 95% accurate. Now, we got to get the Bitcoin CPA on here. There's a guy's like a Bitcoin CPA whiz. That'd be fun. But as it relates to Shannon's question of taxes are going to go up, what do I do? Do I do Roths or IRAs? Well, in 1913, the federal marginal income tax was 7%. What does anybody want to take a stab at? What was the highest marginal income tax ever? Anybody know that? Just speak up. Anybody? So nobody. Bueller. Anybody want to chime in? The highest marginal income tax rate was 94 cents of every dollar in the year 1944 as a pretense to fund World War II. But just like any tax, it stayed in the 90s until 1963. Now, Bernie Sanders and AOC and other socialists, communists, I think we got to stop calling them socialists. It makes them sound so nice. Let's call them communists, because that's where this will all end up. But as any tax, it always stays longer than necessary. And it wasn't until JFK that we lowered taxes from a 91% marginal rate to 70%, and as low as 77% in 1964, then 77% where it stayed until Ronald Wilson Reagan in the 80s lowered marginal rates to 50, then 39, then as low as 28% in the late 80s. Then George W. Bush got canned during his second term because he raised taxes. He said, read my lips, no new taxes. Then what did he do? He raised taxes and he lost. Then Bill Clinton raised them to about 40 cents. George W. Bush lowered them to 35 cents in every dollar. Obama raised them back to around 40 cents. And they're currently at the Trump levels of 37%. That's why people were making a big ado over the Trump tax code. I thought it was dumb. I thought it should have been lowered. I think if we're going to try to move tax policy, you want to make people feel richer, right? So they understand the benefit of lower taxes. So they should have gone to 3 tax strategies: a 20% tax for the wealthy, flat tax, 15% for the middle class, and a 5% for the poor. That way everybody pays something, and then you're getting rid of loopholes, set-asides, but they didn't do that. But that would have made sense. But people made like Trump was lowering taxes so much, really took away a lot of deductions. I didn't care too much for the Trump tax code. Thought it was better than the Biden tax proposal, for sure. But that's the thing. We go on, when conservatives go in, and that's why you got to go on offense. They went on defense. So give us a call, 888-988-JOSH, 888-988-5674. If you have a question, chime in on Clubhouse. But the question here is from Shannon. Could you talk about the pros and cons of traditional IRAs versus Roths, thinking the tax brackets will be much higher in the future? So the whole history of the income tax I just did was to prove the point that I believe socialists, communists will use this history, and they're misusing it already. The top marginal tax rate was 94%, but the effective rates, meaning what the average person paid, was much lower. But truth doesn't matter to politicians. So I've heard politicians say, things were better in the 50s, things were better in the 60s. Well, except on race relations and many other things. But they'll say, things were better at this time, so let's go back to this time. This is the old, the good old days fallacy, we'll call it. But here's the thing. Did they talk about what the effective rates were? Effective rates were not in the 90 percentile. The marginal rate is the highest tax you will pay on your last dollar of income. The effective rate is the percentage you actually pay when your accountant factors in deductions and all of that. So you might be in a 90% bracket, but they may have only paid a 20% effective rate. So when you're looking for this data, but here's why I believe that taxes are going up and not down. And what does that mean? Well, if you have the choice between a Roth or a traditional, do a Roth. If you make too much money to do a Roth, consider a Roth 401k. We have pension companies where we will help you do a Roth 401k. And even if you want it all in Bitcoin, we have pension companies that now will approve Bitcoin. They'll approve diversified low-cost index funds. They'll approve individual stocks. So work with a sound financial advisor, and you can have a Roth 401k regardless of income. You could sock away 20 grand a year, tax-free for the rest of your life. Now, your heirs, assuming you're not married, will have 10 years to spend that money. If you are married, your spouse gets it tax-free for as long as they live, and then 10 years. And that's a big problem of the Trump tax code too. There was something called the Secure Act that ended the stretch IRA. The stretch IRA was one of the biggest benefits in the tax code for IRA holders. It is a benefit no longer, sadly. And that's why trusts and other things are going to become more popular, because what the IRA does, so if you have money in an IRA or 401k and you die, your heirs have to pay all the tax that you didn't over a 10-year period. That's what I call the dreaded income tax acceleration, the dreaded might. So if somebody says, what do you think of Jim Cramer? I don't watch him. I find him, it's very funny actually. Jim Cramer, I am one of the lead financial gurus of the same station that Jim Cramer when he did his radio show. And if this tells you something, I outlasted Jim Cramer on New York's WOR, 7:10 a.m. But, he's entertaining. Cramerica, whatever. Anybody with a name like Kramer, be suspect of. Like the Seinfeld episode. So we got a lot of people chiming in the chat box. If anybody's a financial question, come on up. I'd love to hear from you. I'm trying to go through all of the questions. What are your thoughts on the world's 500 richest people losing a combined 1.4 trillion so far this year? I don't care. Good for them. Here's the thing. This is very critical, right? We gave corporate welfare during COVID. And what did the billionaires and trillionaires do? They bought yachts. They bought special homes in Palm Beach because we didn't allow a financial reset. I don't mean the great reset like the Klaus Schwab. We as a country are so averse to pain. We are so addicted to painkillers in a sense. Not only literally, but figuratively when it comes to our money. Rather than allowing the economy to hit rock bottom, we stepped in and we pumped trillions. And now we're worried, why this inflation? Kind of dumb. So does anybody have any other questions? I would love to go to your questions. Somebody says, how do I expect inflation? How high do I expect inflation to go on taxes? I think we've reached peak inflation, but we'll see. I think it'll start cooling with the economy slowing, but who am I, And that's the thing. When anybody goes on CNBC, I've been on CNBC, Cramerica has to be certain. It's called the sin of certainty. When you're listening to somebody financially, you're not going to do what they tell you if they're uncertain. I'm often uncertain, so maybe I'm not as convincing, but I believe truth is more important than certainty. I believe there's a sin of certainty where you're trying to so be certain that you're going to be okay, you make dumb financial decisions. You sell everything because you're certain the S&P is going to hit 3,000, because you're certain we're going to go through a next Great Depression. We might. Nobody knows. And Cramer, why do people love Cramer? He's certain. Buy. Sell. Moo, all of that. So tax planning, to go back to the Roth versus traditional IRA discussion, if you're like me, I believe taxes are on sale. So it's best to do Roths and tax-free planning now. HSAs, Roths, 529s, and more. All of those things, cash value life insurance, all of those things could be growing tax-free, and you pull it out tax-free. So anybody have any questions? If not, I can shut the room down. I can talk more about the history of the income tax. I'm an expert on that. I can talk more about IRAs. By the way, an IRA is no place for long-term HODL stacking. The IRA is meant to be spent 10 years after your demise. So here's what we've done with some recent clients who called us at 888-988-JOSH. By the way, if anybody wants, you can call me right now, 888-988-JOSH. Request the 15 tax saving steps now, and you'll get a 45-minute free session with me and our tax team. I will give you some free tips on your money related to taxes and more. But some of those tips are do an HSA. You get tax-free money on the way in, on the way up, on the way out. Do a Roth. You get tax-free growth and tax-free distributions. Do a Roth 401k. So if you make a lot of money, you can't do a traditional Roth, you could do a Roth 401k. If you work for an employer, you can do a Roth TSP. If you work for the federal government, you can do a Roth 401k. There are so many really great things that you can do with your money. Okay, so give us a call now, 888-988-JOSH, and I'll give you my 45-minute free wealth blueprint, and we'll give you an ultimate bear market survival guide. So we're going to go to the phone lines. Any other questions before I close out the room? But consider tax-favored investing. Also, I'll keep the room going if you have any financial questions. But I need to hear your question within the next 3 minutes. Other than that, I'm going to go play baseball. Although baseball season is done, I have a great, all my children are great, and we play baseball in our home, just out in the backyard. It's a lot of fun. Although they're hitting it over the neighbor's fence. So we're going to have to, Ben, can we construct some type of netting? Ben is like, he's my, what are we calling him? My special assistant to the president. Jim was all offended that I was calling him my special assistant to the president. So now he's the chief of staff. A year with the company. He's been with the company like 6 months.
Within a year,
I notice he says 8 months, but I really think it was 6 months because I really wasn't with him. He wasn't being trained properly without me. He said all he was doing was filing. So, so anyway, we got some questions pouring in. Let's go. We got somebody who's a professor and somebody, Terry, go ahead. Professor, go ahead. You're on.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, what questions you have? I'm having trouble hearing him. Is it me or him? Okay, let's go to Terry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, sir. So I'm 25 years old. I just started my journey into investing. I'm trying to, the best place is to put my money in. I'm also a day trader. I'm finally withdrawing some profit, and on top of 9 to 5 income, I'm just trying to stack up as much as possible, and grow my money. Where do you suggest I should put everything in?
Yeah, number one, I would not recommend day trading. I would follow a more Warren Buffett type approach. Buy good, profitable companies that you believe will be around for 10 years. But we have a whole thing for people, whether you're just starting out or new to investing, or whether you have, I help people with $100 million. We have something called the Model for Financial Success, where I'll give you a 27-point model for free if you call me at 888-988-JOSH. That's the best place to start, is with a model. But what I'll do, just for the interest of showing the audience, our solution is you need 3 things. The key with financial success is it's a solution, not a process. It's the swing, not the clubs. So if I was to teach you the game of golf, would you prefer a swing like Tiger Woods or the best set of clubs? I'd want the swing like Tiger Woods. I don't know if you know this, but I am friends with the guy who created the algorithms for one of the top day trading schools in the world. You know what that guy sells now? He sells annuities. He's an annuity salesman. So what does that tell you? His trading. Now, by the way, this guy's actually a really good trader. He does trade his own money. But it must have not worked out occasionally. But you know what? When I meet clients, the ones who make the most money are the people who buy quality and they leave it alone for 20, 30 years. Now, does that mean you're dumb? No. Meet quarterly with your advisor. Maybe you do quarterly selling. Maybe you do annual selling. But day trading, I know some people are successful at it, but it reminds me of the early 2000s, the late 90s, where everybody was wealthy. And I bet you, there's some guy who sold you a course for $5,000 to be a day trader. Maybe not, I could day trade, but I've been in the business for 20 years, long time. So 2017, I guess, to be exact. So, but I don't even do that with my own money because it's just, they've done these studies that a chimp. You ever see the old John Stossel? John Stossel did a 2020, back when he's on 2020. Got to watch the YouTube, that a chimp does better managing stocks than your average stockbroker. And that's because a chimp doesn't sell. So basically, they had a stockbroker compete with a chimp that threw darts at random stock symbols. And now, I'm not necessarily a random walk guy like Burt Malkiel. I think there's value in that. But I do believe you shouldn't blindlessly buy. You can buy things like Tesla, for example, was naturally a bad deal at $1,200. But it's a much better deal at $600, right? So you might want to nibble in. But I'm not telling you to buy or sell any security or giving advice. But I think the big key is not what to invest in, but how. The what is buy in assets that will grow with inflation. Avoid the altcoins of the world. Buy high quality stocks. Buy stocks that pay a dividend of 5% or less. You don't want to buy these. We had some guy call earlier. He said, buy 15% dividend. Run the other way. Don't invest in private equity. Don't invest in privately traded REITs. If you can't go out and buy it on the exchange, then they don't have a beefed up CPA and compliance regulatory regime where they're given the quarterly. So there are simple tactics, right? Max out your Roth. Are you maxing out your Roth, L?
I was doing it a lot while I was in the Air Force, and now that I got out, I kind of I stalled a bit. But if you recommend that, then I'll be doing that again.
Yeah, I would max out your Roth because then if you make profits, all of those profits are tax-free. Then when you go above a Roth, look at maxing out your 401k or your TSP. You're getting a tax break from the government to save. If you can do a Roth 401k, you do that. That's 20 grand plus 6. That's 26 grand every year that you can bank. And L, can you say, do you have the wherewithal to save more than 26 or no?
I'm getting close to 100K a year, and I'm only paying like $400 in rent. So
Wow.
I think I could do that.
So yeah, so if you save 26K in tax advantage things, then you can save an extra 25 grand a year into a non-qualified brokerage account. That could be your long-term hodl stack, whether it's stocks, Bitcoin, index funds. It's very interesting. We do an internal analysis, and right now we have something called the 712 portfolio, which is we have not the not the 712 portfolio. It's our own portfolio where we have 12 slivers of pie in 12 different asset classes. And we have energy, we have gold, we have cash. You might have Bitcoin, you might have large cap stocks, you might have tech. And that has hedged the downturn extraordinarily well because of diversification. So after you've done the tax savings things, max out your post-tax dollars. If you have an HSA, max that out. Look for, but then there's a whole protection component. So we were talking about your castle. You need to focus on your moat as well. So the big solution we have is this modeling tool where you can see the 9 components of protection. So we're talking about growing your Roth, growing your IRAs, growing your 401ks, growing your brokerage accounts. But before you do that, do not pass go. Do not collect $200 if you don't focus on protection. We have something called protection inventory design, where if you're young, what are the things that you can derail you? I bet you don't have disability insurance. You need disability insurance. You make what? What'd you say? 6 figures, 100 grand a year?
I'm almost there.
So let's say you make whatever, 90 grand a year. If you get disabled, who's going to pay for your expenses? So my tip is take 1% of your 90 grand salary. It's 900 bucks a year. Take some of your savings and buy disability insurance. And you can get disability insurance to cover you to 65. That way, if you can't do the duties of your own occupation, and you want to make sure you have what's called own occ disability. And if you got a pay raise, get own occ disability. That's a big tip. Are you married? Do you have kids?
I'm sorry. I did not hear the last part.
Did you hear about disability insurance or no?
I did, just not the last part that you asked.
Are you married?
No, sir. No kids. Not married at all.
So if you're married, you should have 20 times your income in a cheap term policy that is convertible to whole because you may want it when you're older. 20-year term goes quick, right? So let's say you get married at 30 or 28 and you buy a term policy that's 20 years cheap term. When you're 48, you may want to convert that to whole. When you're 38, you may want to convert that because you've done really well. So another tip is to have term life insurance equal to 20 times your pay. Very cheap. Do that now while you're young and healthy. Get a will. Get a trust while you're young. Why? As you're saving your non-IRA money, all of that money could grow estate tax free if you're very ambitious. If you're not, you can wait till you save your first, 100,000 or your first million to do the trust. It's not necessary, but while you're young and you have time, do all that stuff. Because I'll tell you, when you're married, it's really tough to do a trust and a will because you never agree on everything 100%. So it took me, I've been married for a number of years and 18 years this year. And it took us forever to do a will. So, and a trust and all that stuff. So, who do we have asking the next question? Vinny, Matt, you have a question? Or Kenneth?
Hey, oh, sorry. You can go, Kenneth, if you.
Oh, okay. Just a quick question. My wife and I, we actually just recently got hit with a big tax thing. We're working. We have two W-2s. We have an S corp that we do a trust fund through, and I do a little bit of Bitcoin, hodl Bitcoin there. But our taxes was ridiculous on the personal side, and so I'm just trying to figure out a way that we're not paying so much, and how can we leverage ourselves so we pay less. And I did hear some good things that you were talking about, making sure that you max out on your Roth. I also work for the government, federal government, I have a TSP. I didn't understand exactly what you were saying, how to work the TSP to my advantage, but any advice would be very helpful.
Yeah, great. And we have a lot of clients who are federal workers. So we do know a lot about TSP investment options, CSG, all that stuff. So we could help you with that. Are you self-employed as well, or do you only work for the federal government?
No, we actually, my wife and I have the S corp, the business that we're running through, and that's how we set up the trust fund. So now I know. Now we can throw
Well,
a
that's
bunch of money
powerful.
there.
We could do a lot with your S corp. We could set up a Roth 401k. You could do the Roth TSP. You could do the traditional TSP. If you need the tax write-offs now, we could set up a pension for your business. So I can show you how to get like 100 grand write-off for you and your spouse if you have a successful business.
Okay.
So how much do you owe in taxes?
Uh, well, I mean, we've paid it off, but we ended up on this year 17 grand this year.
Yeah, so if you do a cash balance pension plan, you would go from owing 17 grand to them owing you money. So
Hmm.
some really cool strategies. Now here's the thing. I get that people are like into the entrepreneurial phase or the Bitcoin phase, whatever. And Bitcoin's here to stay. But my point is, so many people have a hesitancy. We heard it with L, right? I want to be a day trader. Don't take offense to this, L. But that's sexy, right? Sexy to be an entrepreneur. It's sexy to tell your friends I'm day trading. But you know what? The average middle class millionaire that I meet, I'm talking people with $2 to $8 million saved, coming from nothing. We have a ton of clients in that boat, don't we, Jim? We have a ton of people.
Yes.
One guy this week, how did the guy grow his money? Did he tell you? It's like a Seinfeld episode.
No, he didn't.
The guy said, Josh, I listened to you for the last 15, 18 years. I didn't buy the internet. I used the internet at the library. Now, if you looked at this guy, you'd be like, he's not a middle-class millionaire. You might overlook him. But this guy, I love him. He's a character. He bought his life. He uses his county tax. They get videos from the library. They surf the web from the library. Now, I'm not that ascetic. I actually have internet at my house. But if you want to be financially ahead, and L, I loved your spirit. I'm making nearly 100 grand a year, and I could save 50 grand. That was exactly my spirit. I learned how to live like a pauper. It's tough to do that when you're married with kids, to be honest, because once you start having a couple kids, it's difficult. So I liken your period from 25 to 30, or whenever you're married, is the greatest wealth building, because you can save your first 100 grand and your first 200, your first 300 really easy. And then it becomes a snowball, because then you're just making interest off your money. We had this gentleman who was talking about working for the federal government. Take advantage of the TSP, max that out. That'll give you a deduction. Take advantage of the Roth TSP. That'll grow tax-free. Also, I could help you do this cash balance pension plan. We could show you how to get write-offs of 100 grand. Let's say you don't want to do a pension because whatever. You could do a profit sharing, and you could get like 60 grand socked away for your retirement. So what that means is if you get 60 grand for your retirement, that's 20 grand as a write-off. I'm hearing a lot of people on TikTok. By the way, I started TikTok. Follow me, The Financial Quarterback. Follow me on Clubhouse, because you know what? I'm sick of like spammy rooms where people are trying to reverse funnel you into their sales program, their coaching program. Here's the thing. I'm a financial advisor. I make that clear. If you want true financial advice from a fee-based fiduciary, call us at 888-988-JOSH. First meeting's free. We'd love to meet with you, discuss our process at 888-988-JOSH. I'll give you a copy of a book of your choice. I have a book, Retirement Reality Check. I'll meet with you for free. Obviously, I make money. We charge a low fee for fiduciary services. But the point is, I'm giving a lot of value away. A lot of these people on these apps, they're total scammy. There's this thing on TikTok. Anybody hear of it called like IMP? Anybody hear this? IMP? Guy's got like 1 million plus followers on IMP. God bless him. But there's a lot of misinformation on these apps. And I'm here to combat that and dispel that. Also, REITs. I hear so many things that just give me alarm. Another financial tip is do not follow a social media guru who's not also a fiduciary, because in the fiduciary, when you hire us, we have a legal obligation to act in your best interest. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to always make the right decision. It just means what we're doing is not for gain, and we're disclosing conflicts of interest, much like an attorney would. So more into tax savings plans. Solar, right now, the government pays you like 35 cents on every dollar. And by the way, I'll give you our 15 ways to save taxes review. One of those is to start a company. And so you're doing that because then you can funnel things through the business. So be careful, keep good records, have a good financial advisor. And that's the thing, when I talk about the solution is not a magic bullet product. The solution is not a single rate of return. It's not even a financial plan. It's a process. It is the swing, not the clubs. And we give our clients 3 key elements. You can write this down, whether you hire us or not. We'll give you a game board for your money, a rule book, and a macro manager. So I will literally print out a rule book, a game board manager, a game board, and a macro manager concept for you for free if you schedule a meeting at 888-988-JOSH. But the game board's cool because you can see the impact of your financial decisions all on one page. So in the game of personal finance, our model acts as your game board. So think of it like a chessboard. You have the pieces. You're the owner of the pieces, but we'll help you align them on your board appropriately. Because say your long-term goal is to hodl Bitcoin till it's $1 million a coin. You have to do things so that your wife doesn't divorce you when you lose 50% of your money because Bitcoin is down 50%, right? Like, you gotta live. You gotta eat food. I was in a Bitcoin room, this was before the crash, and I told everybody that they should have 1 to 3 years in cash if they wanted to hodl Bitcoin. Now imagine, I mean, I'm a Bitcoiner, but I'm for sound financial strategies. I'm one of the only, Bitcoin financial friendly advisors that I know, in that I'm anti shitcoinery and I'm pro Bitcoin. But there's principles. You need life insurance. You need disability insurance. And you might say, I have it through work. Do you have own occupation or any occupation? Because I got news for you. If you have any occupation definition of disability, and I'll do a free disability review, if you can practice the phrase, welcome to Walmart. So let's say Jim buys disability insurance and he gets disabled, but he can't do what he does with me because he's so smart and he's sharp. Let's say he's slipping, but he can give out the sticker at Walmart and say, welcome to Walmart. And there's no shame in that. That's dignity. They're making $15 an hour now working at Walmart, giving out the sticker. God bless them. But you know what? I don't think the guy who's giving the sticker, I don't think that was his aspiration in life. But you know what? Whatever you're doing, there was that old motto, if you're a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper for Jesus that you can be. And I think that's true. There's dignity in any job, but it's just, it's a joke. People can't take jokes anymore. But if Jim can give a sticker and say, welcome to Walmart, guess what? The disability insurance will stop paying unless he has own occupation. But let's say Jim has a disability and he buys disability insurance for his family, and you can get it through your employer, you get it through us. Jim, you get 1 or 2 of your favorite coworkers. I think it's a 15 or 20% discount. So you just get 2 or 3 buddies together, I can give you 20% discount. Anybody. But the own occupation definition of disability is critical, because if you could do any occupation, a lot of these companies will ship you off and say, you got to give the sticker at Walmart. Sorry. So you go from making 90 grand a year like this gentleman to 30 grand. That's going to be a big dip in your income. So who's our next caller, questioner? We got room for one more question, and then I got to go.
I have a question, if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, well.
And make sure, folks, you all follow me and follow my club, The Financial Quarterback, for whatever financial questions you have. I pretty much know the answer to many of them. So go ahead. And whatever I don't know, we'll get an expert in a future meeting. Okay, what happened to him? Okay, he left. Final question. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Go ahead. Yes, you were patient. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I was just curious. I think I asked him yesterday, last week, but anyways, I was looking potentially at alternative investments. I know we're in a recession, potentially a depression. Would you recommend any allocation to land? I'm actually looking at potentially maybe putting 5% of my net worth into land. Just as I think it's just maybe a safer investment, and maybe like farmland to get kind of like a dividend, almost like a bond. What would you recommend that strategy? Maybe just putting 5 to 7% of your net worth into land.
Well, farmland is not the best investment because typically you can get more income off of an annuity or dividend paying stock than farmland. So, for example, we have clients, they have $2 million in farmland. They're lucky if they make 80 grand a year off that, personally. And it's really like $3 million, but I say 2 because if they sold it, they'd have to pay taxes. If you have the opportunity to do land, I'm all for it as a hedge, I guess, in case the world goes to, pot. I like buying land with the capability to add Bitcoin mining. So if it's near a cheap electricity source, that excites me. So that's really something I'm looking into. That's because you have land and you have write-offs for the miners, and you have the potential to stack and grow your stack. So that's something I'm looking into. I'm not recommending anybody do that. But farmland as a hedge, I'm cool with it. It's just not that good of an investment. Sort of like gold, It's like there for a rainy day. Now, farmland 10 years ago was a great investment because all these rich people, they moved from California to Montana, Idaho, wherever. People moving to Wyoming, right, to escape taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So it seemed that a lot of rich people did that in the last 10 years. So here's what I think could happen. I think if we go through a recession or depression, people are going to be struggling, and that's when you can really pick up the best deals on farmland.
Okay, so maybe wait. Yeah, because so basically...
Maybe 12 to 18 months, after we have a
Okay.
softening.
Yeah, because my dad and I, we're going to go in together. This farmland that we're going to go into, it's kind of interesting. You mentioned energy, but they're looking to implement, it's in Illinois, looking to implement some wind turbines, so we'd get some tax benefits as well as for whatever company was going to put the wind turbines on, there'd be like a significant, there'd be a bigger return year over year, basically. So I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, I appreciate the answer, Josh. Thank you.
Yeah, and message me and we could talk offline. So folks, DM me 15 ways if you want to get the 15 ways to save taxes review, or call my office right now. We have operators standing by live, 888-988-JOSH. If operators are busy, just leave a message. David or one of our fine team members will get back to you. So call us, 888-988-JOSH, 888-988-JOSH. That's a wrap.